fomu za 34A na bali sio mambo mengine ambayo yameweza kuwasilishwa katika mahakama ya juu. Vile vile tuliweza kumwona wakili Muthomi Thiankolo ambaye vile vile anamwasilisha naibu rais William Ruto, ambapo aliweza kusema kuwa yeye kulingana na anavyoiona hii rufaa, basi haoni kesi yoyote hapa, haoni mawasilisho yoyote ambayo yanawezesha kesi hii kuweza kuamuliwa vizuri. Akiweza kusema kuwa mengi ambayo ameweza kuyaona tu ni mambo ya kuchekesha, ni mambo ambayo ameweza kuyalinganisha na riwaya kadha wa kadha, mojawapo ikiwa igizo la Macbeth, ambapo ameweza kusema kuwa ni sawa na mizizimo na vile vile kelele nyingi tu ambazo ziliweza kufanywa hapo mahakamani. Vile vile akaweza kuilinganisha na riwaya ya Shaban Robert kuhusiana inayoitwa Kusadikika, akiambia mahakama kuwa waweze kuangazia kuwa hii si mahakama ya nchi ama eneo la kusadikika kama Shaban Robert anavyosema katika riwaya yake, akisema kuwa basi iweze kutupiliwa mbali, kwani akiangazia mawasilisho kutokana na hati ya kiapo iliyowasilishwa na Mark John Githongo, ni kuwa mawasilisho hayo yote yameweza kupatikana kuwa hayakuwa ya kweli, kwani hati hizo zinaangazia ama mambo ambayo yapo katika hati hizo za kiapo ama affidavit ni za mwaka 2017 na zimepatikana na makosa mengi sana. Hivyo basi akaitaka mahakama kuweza kutupilia mbali. Vile vile kulikuwa na wengine kama Melissa Ngani ambaye vile vile aliweza kuongelea mambo hayo, Kithure Kindiki, na kwa sasa anaeleza kuwa kikao hicho kinarejea ambapo wanaenda kuangazia mawasilisho hayo na vile vile shughuli ya kutathmini vifaa vilivyotumika katika uchaguzi. Kwa hivyo unaenda kukurejesha studioni tuweze kufuatilia kikao hicho.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will invite the Honorable Justice Ouko to begin with these questions.
Thank you, Judge President. I have a couple of questions. I'll start with Mr. Mahat, who without leave proceeded to convert this courtroom into a classroom. Mr. Mahat, there was an allegation that 33,000 vote differential were noted between the votes cast for the president and those for governor, senator, women rep. You tried this morning to explain that some of those instances arose from stray ballots. Would you tell us how many constitute stray ballots? And can you also share with us how those stray ballots are distributed in terms of counties? Related to that, did you have, in your analysis, did you have any instances where voters walked into the polling station, voted for the president and no other candidate or no other category of candidates, what in this court we call the Mwilu question, in reference to my lady the vice president, I think arising from the 2017 question that I think my lady and my lord Mr. Justice Smokin Wanjala posed. Did you have any of those where you are issued with 5, 6 ballot papers, but you don't utilize all of them? Senior Counsel Kamau Karori, the appointment of the chairperson of the IEBC was gazetted by the chairman himself. I would like to know whether he was gazetted as an agent of the commission or he was gazetted as national returning officer in his capacity as the chairman of the commission, and whether, if it was as an agent of the commission, whether there were any resolutions preceding this appointment. I'm back to Mr. Mahat with the question of voter turnout. According to your presentation on PowerPoint this afternoon, you said there were 45,994 voters were identified through KIEMS kit, and this is out of 46,229. That KIEMS kit were used in 45,994 polling stations out of 46,229. That gives us 235 polling stations, which I assume I did not use KIEMS kit. Therefore, assuming that the manual system was employed to identify them, are you able to say the numbers from these 235 polling stations? I saw some figures like 860 or 86,000, 114,000. So if you can just clarify that for us. And again to Mr. Mahat, because he dealt with figures. Mr. Umtata yesterday presented also a PowerPoint to demonstrate that 1.6 million votes were cast or were streaming in many hours after the closure of voting. If you can also respond to that question. Mr. Gumbo, both Mr. Issa and Mr. George Oraro, Senior Counsel, in their submissions talked about how Kenyans were following the streaming of results live, and then something happened and that stopped. Can you explain to us what may have happened for this to have stopped? My lady, those are all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Council. Again, your submissions were most helpful. We thank you. Professor Muigai, you said that the whole dispute revolves around numbers. And you were before us in 2017, and the question of Section 83 of the Elections Act was prominent at the time. Morgan versus Simpson was prominent. You were Attorney General at the time. A number of things happened around Section 83 post our judgment. My question is, looking at the quantitative test, and Professor Kindiki raised the question too around Section 83. I had it before he raised it. Could you speak to it, and what is the approach you should take in this case regarding the test to apply? Number two, again to your team, and any of you could answer it. It's not a flippant question. I'm raising it deliberately because I have reason to. I know that the events of 15th August are in our minds, but remember that there was an extra day by which Mr. Chebukati could have declared the result. Why did he not wait until that day? Violence or no violence? Perhaps you have another reason. Reach out to the commissioners, the four that are now named the four. Try and reach a consensus. Address the question of the 27 constituencies so that these suspicions that have now cropped up would not have been an issue. Is there any other reason why he did not take advantage of the extra day to do what he had to do? Mr. Oraro, I understand where you're coming from. I understand where your clients are coming from. I understand where Mr. Kenyo and Mr. Kihara and the rest are coming from. We are now in a sport where public office is becoming exceedingly dangerous. Falsehoods are being peddled, not just to those on this side, but more even on this side and those outside. So I understand the need for you to say, my clients would like to clear their names because they've been mentioned in these proceedings. But let us come back to the proceedings, the pain of social media, the pain of affidavits aside. What do you want this court to do with the information you've given us? So we have had your side of the story. We've had Mr. Chebukati's side. We've had Cherera's side and our colleagues. What do you tell the court to do in the context of this judgment, in the context of the issues for determination? What do we do with the matters you placed before us? And while you're at it, you also mentioned Section 83. Perhaps you could also say something about Regulation 87.3. Perhaps since you appear for the Attorney General, and for the first time you're not appearing as amicus but as a respondent, could you say something about Regulation 87.3 and the question I posed to Mr. Noroji? It would be helpful for us if we could hear you on that question. I believe those are my, Mr. Mahat, I may have missed this, but I still want to clear my, this is a question I posed to Mr. Murgora as well. So the format initially is JPEG. At what point exactly does it convert to PDF? Forget the CSV story. I guess Mr. Mulgo dropped that. But I just want to understand for myself. At what point you've taken the image, you've asked all the questions, very good questions you've asked, the system has asked you the question. At what point does it convert to PDF? I thank you all very much. Thank you, Judge President.
Thank you, Judge President. My questions will go to Professor Muigai. As we've been asked by a number of parties that they've asked us to settle the law around Article 138.3 and 10. In your submissions, you suggested that the term commission can be used in multiple senses. How do we know which sense will be applied when? As a former Attorney General, perhaps you can point out to us whether it is in regulations, it is in the law, but how do we know which sense is applied when? My second question goes to the history of independent commissions, and Professor Muigai, you sat on the CKRC together with my colleague, Justice Lenaula, and you do know that the drafters of the Constitution introduced independent commissions and independent offices to deal with issues of authoritarianism, accountability, transparency, and to do away with the issue of one person having power. But from the narrative that we're hearing here in the court, there appears to be an all-powerful chair who, so what is a check for this all-powerful chair if the commissioners have nothing to do with his role? What would happen if the chair was to announce the wrong results completely? Or if he was mentally incapacitated or sick, or worst case scenario, dead? Who then would announce the results? What is the role of the other commissioners? I think this is bothering me, especially because it seems to me that your client and the IEBC suggest that the chairperson works with the CEO, and I feel a bit concerned. The CEO is not vetted by Parliament. He is appointed, but he seems to wield immense powers over and above the other commissioners. I cannot imagine that that could have been the intention of the drafters of the Constitution. So what role do these commissioners actually do? Because it hasn't come clearly. Or, for example, if one commissioner says he's in charge of ICT, what does that mean? Does it mean he's in charge of ICT until the presidential election, then he's not? What does it mean? What is the role of these commissioners? And I'm asking this question more towards trying to understand the leadership and the management in the commission as opposed to the management of the presidential election. Because I think they're two separate issues, and I'm trying to figure out whether this is a Chebukati problem, is it a leadership problem, is it a commissioner's problem? What's this problem we're seeing? I'm trying to understand that, and I'd like to hear that from you. Thank you. One more question, sorry. When the results come for other elections, so you have returning officers for senator, for governor, for MCA, and they're all announced or declared locally at the polling station, constituency, county. How is that information transmitted to the public? And when that information is transmitted to the public through a gazette notice, are the commissioners involved? Or is it the CEO only? Or is it the chairperson only? Who is involved in the declaration or the transmission of declaration publicly of those results? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice. My first question, I think, could be addressed by Mr. Karori. In the morning, you did really argue quite strongly that when it comes to verification, tallying, and declaration of the result, the presidential election result, that really, if you look at the law in your interpretation of the Article 138 and the jurisprudence that you say emanates from this court, you seem to be arguing that that is strictly within the purview of the chair's mandate, and that really these other commissioners, let's say the remaining, the 6 commissioners, really ought not to be around that, because that's a role preserved for the chair. But then you said, according to the statute that establishes this commission, the enabling statute, the roles and functions of the commission, Quack Commission, are stated. One of them is oversight. What is oversight? If, in fact, the commissioners, I would have thought that one of the most important oversight roles in the commissioner's life would be when they are overseeing the verification and tallying of the presidential election result at the center before the same is then declared on behalf and for and but for the people of Kenya by the chair. So what is oversight? I ask this because we were informed yesterday, and I think you were here, that instead of perhaps playing this role, some of them were allocated welfare scenarios, protocol, and media. But what is oversight? What would they be oversighting over? That's the question. In other words, at what point in this corporate entity scenario does the chair then disengage from the other commissioners? Be they 2 or be they 5 or 6? When do you say this is chair qua chair and this is chair as part of the commission? Because we need to understand that we've been asked to provide clarity. Then let's go to Mahat. Mahat, there is this story about this Venezuelan, and one of the issues is whether the technology system employed or deployed was penetrated. And you did tell us, again, quite robustly, that there was no such penetration or infiltration or intrusion, whichever. But you did also concede that this Venezuelan, whatever his name is, had access to the server. But your answer was that the contract between the IEBC and Smartmatic was to supply and maintenance. So if I understood you correctly, this Venezuelan was accessing the server